Hello everyone, welcome to Python lecture, and in this lecture we are going to understand a variable inside Python. Variable is very important, you can say a building block for any programming languages. Because whenever you're going to write any kind of a logic, any kind of a function inside any programming language, obviously you will end up processing a data. And variables are nothing but they try to hold a data for a local computation. This is a very small layman kind of a definition for a variable. But let's try to understand all of these things with the practical example. And whenever I'm going to show you a coding, which I'm going to showcase in almost every lecture. So please try to do it at that point of a time, because just by watching a lectures is not going to give you any kind of advantages. So if you're going to practice it inside your system, if you are going to do the same thing which I'm doing as of now, obviously you will be able to get a complete 100% benefit. Apart from this, so I'm going to share this entire code file with all of you. So let's get started. So first of all, I'm going to create a folder. So I'll just go and click on open folder. I'm going to create a folder, Python lecture, and select folder. Now, so this is a folder which is available to me, and I'll try to create my IPYNB file over here. So I'm going to start with IPYNB file, but as we are going to progress inside our lecture, so from IPYNB file, I'll come inside basically a complete pure modular coding. So first of all, let's try to start with this one, variables.ipynb. So this is a Jupyter notebook file, IPYNB. Let me just change the name, IPYNB. And yes, this is a Jupyter notebook which is available to me. So whenever we are writing a is equals to 10, now what happens in a background? Let's try to understand that particular part. So whenever we are writing a is equal to 10, it is going to reserve a space. So let's try to understand maybe in this way. So whenever I have written a is equals to 10, it simply means that inside a memory, it is going to hold 10, and it is referring this variable 10 by the name a. So we are trying to reserve a space inside our memory, and then over here, so we are trying to store 10, and we are trying to give name or maybe a reference to this particular variable is equals to a. And whenever we'll try to pull out this variable, whenever we have to use this variable, I just have to write a over here, and yes, I will be able to get a data. Very simple. So a over here is nothing but it's a data that we are trying to store. As of now, we are trying to store just an integer data, but going forward, so we'll try to store even a list kind of a data, dictionary kind of a data, set kind of a data, tuples kind of a data. We will even try to store a data which we will try to bring from maybe an Excel sheet, from maybe a databases, from maybe a PDF file, maybe from some other MongoDB, Cassandra kind of a system. So yes, the purpose of creating this variable a is nothing but bring a data, store it somewhere in a local, so that whenever my program will run, whenever I'm going to write a logic, it will be able to utilize this particular data, and it will be able to give you the computational result. Okay, fine. So this particular part I believe is completely fine with us. So a is nothing but a over here is nothing but it's a variable which we have already created. Now, whenever I would like to access a, I just have to write a, and yes, I will be able to get a value of a. So a is equal to 10, and 10 we are able to access over here. It's very simple, right? Very simple. We are able to access a. So anywhere, if I would like to access a, it is going to give me value, or it is going to give me result is equals to a. Even I can try to write a print function, print over here, and I can try to print in this particular place. And here I'm trying to print what? I'm trying to print basically a. So it is giving me a result, a respective result. A is what? A is equals to 10. So here a is nothing but a is a variable. In any other programming language, for example, if I'm talking about specifically about a Java, So whenever you try to create a variable inside Java, you have to write a data type before a variable. So whenever you're going to create any kind of a things in Java, so here you have to write maybe integer a is equals to 10. This is what we used to write in case of many programming language, or I would say in most of the programming languages. We have to define a data type of the variable in a beginning, and then we can try to give our own variable name. But here in Python, you can see we are not writing any kind of a data type. Python is basically a self-typed language, so it will be able to understand a data type of this particular variable automatically. I'm going to show you that as well, right? I'm going to show you that what kind of a data type Python is able to understand out of this variable a. But yes, I think we are able to understand a is equals to 10. So a is nothing but it's just a variable. You can give any kind of a name. There is no issue at all. You can give my name, you can give your name, and Python is going to consider that name as a variable name. There are a couple of reserved keyword which exist inside a Python. So obviously you can't use those reserved keyword for a variable name. And going forward, we will even try to understand that what kind of a naming convention we try to follow whenever we try to create a variable name or maybe a function name. Maybe in a later stage, we'll try to understand those part. As of now, just try to understand how we can try to create a variable and what kind of a variable, what type of variable exists inside Python. So fine guys, I believe this is done. We are able to create a variable. We are able to understand how we can create or what kind of variable we can try to create inside Python. Now here, so let's suppose if I would like to know that what is a data which Python is trying to store inside this variable a. So what I can do is I can just write a function called as type. Type is nothing but it's a inbuilt function inside Python. So type and then type of what? Type of a. So automatically you are able to get that type of a is nothing but it's a integer. So by default, Python is able to understand this a, which is holding a value is equals to 10 as an integer. Simple, right? Like I told you, so Python is basically a self-typed language. So you are not supposed to define what kind of a variable you are going to create. Python will be able to understand. So Python is very intelligent and very powerful programming language in this particular sense. And it never gives you a kind of a bottleneck or hurdle to even create a single variable. It's very simple as compared to any other programming language that you can see in a different like a system or different kind of a application. Now here we are able to understand that yes, we can create a integer kind of a variable. Integer means a kind of a whole number. So maybe a negative number, maybe a positive number, maybe a 0. So all those numbers is called as integer. Let's suppose I'm going to write b is equals to negative of 345. So here b, again it will try to create a reference in a memory. What it will do, so it will try to create a reference. It will try to hold a value is equals to 345 and it will refer it as a b over here, and here is a data it will try to store automatically. So b is equals to 345. Now if I have to access b, I can simply write b and I will be able to access it. If I would like to know what is a type of b, what is a data type of b which my system is able to understand. So data type of b is equals to integer. Like I said, integer is nothing but maybe a negative number, maybe a positive number. And here, yes, we are able to create even an integer variable with this one. Now let's suppose if I'm going to write b is equals to some different number, 234, right? So what value I will be able to get? Let's suppose if I'm calling b now, right? If I'm going to call b now, so what kind of a data it is storing internally? So let's try to understand. So now b became 234. Previously it was minus 345, but now it is giving me a result of 234. So what I'm trying to showcase over here is that you can try to create a same variable name. You can try to take the same variable name. You can try to store maybe a different kind of a data inside the same variable. It will always try to showcase a recent data or the latest one. So internally inside a memory, what it will do is it will try to remove this one and then it will try to hold value is equals to 234. Simple, right? And here is my b. It is holding value is equals to 234. Fine. Now here, if you are going to check again what is the data type of this variable b, you will be able to get type of this variable. So what is the type of this variable b? So type of this variable is nothing but integer. So yes, I can try to create an integer variable. That's completely fine. Now let's try to understand some different kind of a variable. Let's suppose I'm going to write c. C is equals to 0.3543. Execute. Now if I'll try to check what is the type of this variable c. So it is giving me that type of this variable c is nothing but it's a floating point number. Okay, fine. So type of this variable c is nothing but it's a floating point number. So floating point numbers are a different kind of a variable or different kind of a data type which exists inside Python. Again, so this is a different data type. So wherever you are going to use this decimal, and after decimal, if there are some values, so it will be able to consider that as a floating point number. So integer, we are able to create, floating point number, we are able to create, and we don't have to do anything. We don't have to even mention that I'm going to create a floating point or I'm going to create an integer. Python understands each and everything automatically. You don't have to worry about it. Now let's try to create some different kind of a variable over here. So let's suppose if I'm going to write d is equals to true, true, right? D is equals to true. As we all know that true, false, 0, 1, all of these things exist in a world of computers, right? Computer is all about a binary, 0 and 1. So here, if I'm going to write d is equals to true, and here if I'm going to check type of d, if I'm going to check type of what? Type of d. So type of d is what? It's a bool. Bool means boolean. So there is another data type which exists, which is called as boolean data type. So true or false can be the variable's value at any given point of a time you can mention. So here d is equals to what? D is equals to boolean, d is equals to true, and d is nothing but it's a boolean variable. Again, I can try to create maybe a variable e. I can write false. Again, make sure that t should always be in a uppercase. F is should always be in a upper cases. Otherwise, it will not be able to understand that as a variable. So here I have written d is equals to true, t capital, e is equals to false, e capital. Now if I'm going to check what is a type of e. So type of e is again boolean. So true or false is always going to be a boolean data type or a boolean variable. So wherever you are going to mention true, wherever you are going to mention false, it is going to be a boolean. Simple. Okay. Now internally the value of true is going to be always 1. And internally value of false is going to be always 0. I'll show you that part as well. Let's suppose if I'm going to write true, true, plus if I'm going to write false, f capital. So false if I'm going to write. Now if I'm going to ask you a question that what is the outcome of this entire statement? True plus false, right? It's a bit confusing. Like I told you, true means 1. False means 0. 1 plus 0 is equals to 1. So fine, execute. As you can see the result. True is equals to 1. False is equals to 0. 0 plus 1 or 1 plus 0 is equals to 1. I'm able to get the response. Let's suppose if I'm going to write over here true into false. I know the value of true internally. Value of true is equals to 1. Value of false is equals to 0. 1 into 0 is equals to 0. So here is a result that we are able to get. So it is giving me basically 0. But yes, internally true and false is called as boolean variable. Always make sure that Python is a case sensitive language. So T is going to be capital and F is going to be capital for true and false respectively. Okay. So boolean is something that we are able to create in a easiest possible way. We also know that if I'm going to do some sort of like a numeric calculation with respect to true and false, internally it is going to consider value of true is equals to 1 and value of false is equals to 0 all the time, every time, right? Okay, now let's try to understand the next thing. So here I'm going to create another variable, so which can be a string. So s is equals to, let's suppose if I'm going to write my name, SUDHANSHU, SUDH and SHU. Let's suppose you have to mention the complete paragraph. Let's suppose you have to write the complete story. How you can write it? So what you can do is you can try to enclose your entire data inside a double quotes, single quotes, or maybe inside a triple quotes, and that is going to be a string. So here S is equals to Sudhanshu I have written. Now if I'll go and check what is a type, what is a type of this particular S. So automatically it is going to give you type is equals to str. Str is nothing but string. So here is a string that we are able to create in this particular place. S is equals to Sudhanshu. So string wise, we can try to create it in this particular way. Now let's suppose if I'm going to create a string S1 and here I'm going to write SUDH and SHU. It's completely fine. So here as you can see, I have used a single quotes and here I'm trying to use a, here I've used double quotes and here I'm trying to use a single quotes. Here if I'll go and check what is the type of basically this S1, type of S1. So type of S1 is again string. So it doesn't matter whether you are going to mention it within a single quote or maybe within a double quotes, it is going to behave, it is going to treat it as a string. Now let's suppose if I'm going to create S2 and I'm giving a triple quote, triple single quotes again. And here if I'm going to write SUDH and SHU, and if I'm going to check what is a type of S2. So type of S2 is again string. So I have mentioned triple quotes over here. Still it is trying to treat it as a string. Let's suppose if I'm going to create S3 over here and triple double quotes I'm going to mention. And here let's try to see what is the type of this S3. So type of this S3 is again a string. So I can try to create a string by using a single double quote, single quote, triple double quote, or triple single quote. By using any of these method, I can try to hold my string data set inside any variable. Let's suppose I'm not using any of these things. S4 I'm going to create and I'm going to write SUDH and SHU. So execute it. Here you can see that name Sudhanshu is not defined. So it is not able to consider this one as a variable. That's a problem, right? That's a problem. So unless and until you are not going to enclose your string inside a single quote, inside a double quote, inside a triple single quote, inside a triple double quote, system is not going to consider your data set as a string. So whenever you are going to create a string, always make sure that either of these three things you have to use, you have to mention, otherwise it is not going to consider or it is not going to treat it as a variable. Fine guys, so hopefully we are able to create all of these variables. So we are able to understand integer variable, a floating point variable, we are able to understand a string variable. In a variety of way, we are able to understand a boolean variable. So this four kind of a things we are able to understand. Now what is next? What is the next kind of a variable that we can try to create inside a Python? Now, all of these things are called as primitive data type or basic variables. Apart from this, there is something called as list, tuples, dictionary, set, which we will try to explore in a later stage. Even those things comes under a variable, a basic variable, right? But here, first of all, try to understand all of these things one by one. So the next variable which I'm going to explain you is called as complex variable. Maybe in a childhood, you must have gone through a complex number. So complex number is nothing but it's a combination of real number and an imaginary number, where notation of imaginary number, we always try to denote by I, right? I. So here we can try to perform the exact same operation and we can try to create a complex variable. Let's try to see how we can try to create a complex variable. Let's suppose I'm writing C and C is equals to 5 plus 7j. Okay, 7j. Now here, if I'll go and check what is a type of C, what is a type of C? Automatically it is giving me it's a complex type. Yes, it's a complex type. Means what is the data type? It's a complex number data type that system is able to understand. So here what I have written 5 plus 7j, right? I have written 5 plus 7j. Now 5 is nothing but it's a real number and 7 is nothing but it's a imaginary number because we have associated j with it. In a mathematical term, in a mathematical way, in general, it will be I. But here in a Pythonic way, it is going to be j. So with the help of j, we are going to denote that this particular part of a number is going to be a complex, and because of that, the entire number is going to be the complex. So here, if I'm going to call C, this is how it is going to give me as an outcome. Inside a bracket, 5 plus 7j. I can access real part of it. I can access even imaginary part of it. So here, let's try to understand how we can try to access a real part and how we can try to access an imaginary part. But before that, let's try to do some sort of a permutation combination. So let's suppose I have written 5 plus 7j. Let's copy it. And here, instead of writing j, if I'm going to write I, is it going to work? No, it is not going to work. It is basically a syntactical error. Like I said, in a mathematics books, you will be able to find out iota. But here, in case of Python, the notation is basically j. All the time, it is going to be j. No other number. Now here, so see, again, I'm going to call, I'm writing capital J. Is it going to work? So yes, capital J is going to work if I'm going to check what is the type of this particular C, it is able to understand. So capital J and a small j is working fine with me, but other numbers are not working fine with me. So here, let's suppose if I'm writing A over here, no, it's not working. So anything apart from j is not going to work. You can try to denote a complex number, imaginary part of a complex number, by using either a capital J or maybe by using a small j. These are the two options that you have inside a Python. Any other alphabet, if you are going to use, it is not going to work at all. So this is the fourth variable that we are able to create. So integer, then floating point number, then boolean, string, and a complex number. So let me write it down. So first of all, we are able to understand integer, then float, then we are able to understand basically boolean, then we are able to understand a string, then we are able to understand complex number. Now, with respect to integer, floating point number, boolean, string, and complex number, we can perform a variety of operation, not just one. Many operation we can try to perform. Many different kind of a data manipulation we can try to perform, that we are going to see obviously in a upcoming lecture. So this lecture we can try to devote it just with respect to a variable. So introduction of a variable. So in the next chapter, we are going to understand that what all different kind of a variable which exist inside a Python. For example, a list, maybe a string, maybe, well, sorry, not a string I have already discussed. So maybe a list, maybe a tuples, maybe a dictionary, maybe a set, and a different kind of a data type which exists inside a Python. So hope all of you have liked this lecture and all of you are able to understand at least a little bit about a variable. So if you have understood, so please try to practice it inside your system, which is very much important. Programming is all about permutation and combination. Initially, we'll try to go a bit slow, but once we will be able to cover enough amount of Python, then obviously we can try to increase our speed, but practice is very much important. Unless and until you are not doing a practice, it is not going to help you out. So with that, thank you so much. See you again in my next lecture.